My name is Betty Williams, and I am 34 years old. For 8 years, I built my career in marketing, climbing the ladder through dedication and results. Now I sit at my desk, silently packing my belongings as Thomas from HR stands before our department. She chose to leave. It was her personal decision, he announces with practiced sympathy. My phone burns in my pocket, displaying the termination email they never thought I would see. Have you ever been wrongfully blamed for something at work? Let me know where you are watching from, and be sure to like and subscribe as I share how I stood up for myself when nobody else would. Trans Global Marketing was not just a company to me, it was my second home, located in downtown Chicago, in a sleek glass building with a breathtaking view of Lake Michigan. It was one of the top marketing firms in the city. My corner desk faced east, letting the morning sun warm me as I started each workday with enthusiasm and purpose. I had been with Trans Global for 3 years, and in that time, I had built a reputation for myself as a dedicated and innovative marketing specialist. My previous boss, Daniel Harris, had always appreciated my work ethic. Betty, you have a unique ability to see what clients need before they even know it themselves, he would often say during our weekly team meetings. Those words meant everything to me. I had worked hard to get where I was, putting myself through college while working part-time jobs, and finally landing at a company where I felt my talents were recognized. My colleagues had become like family. Jessica Brown, our graphic designer, was my closest friend at work. We would grab lunch together almost daily at the small deli across the street, discussing projects, sharing weekend plans, and occasionally gossiping about office politics. Taylor Rodriguez from Content Development and Amelia Washington from Client Relations were also part of our tight-knit group. The 4 of us formed an unofficial support system, helping each other through tough deadlines and celebrating victories together with after-work drinks at Lakeside Bar. Just 2 months ago, I had successfully led a major campaign for Sunrise Tech, a rising technology company looking to rebrand their image. The campaign had exceeded all expectations, increasing their quarterly revenue by 30% and earning Trans Global a lucrative ongoing contract. Daniel had praised my work in front of the entire company during our monthly all-hands meeting. The Sunrise campaign is a perfect example of the innovation and dedication we strive for at Trans Global, he had said, making eye contact with me. Betty Williams exemplifies the talent we nurture here. My personal life was equally satisfying. I lived in a cozy 1-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park, a 20-minute train ride from the office. My boyfriend Jack Thompson and I had been together for 2 years, and we were discussing the possibility of buying a place together. He was a software engineer at a startup downtown, and we complemented each other perfectly. While I thrived on creative thinking and relationship building, he was analytical and detail-oriented. Together, we dreamed of a future with a small house in the suburbs, maybe a dog, and eventually children. The future seemed bright and within reach. Then came the changes. Daniel received a well-deserved promotion and was moved to head the international division, which meant relocating to our London office. Everyone was happy for him, but his departure left a void in our department. The announcement of our new director came a week later. Amanda Fisher, transferred from our New York office, was introduced as someone who would bring fresh perspectives and drive growth in new directions. The first signs of change were subtle. Meeting schedules shifted. Budgets were adjusted. The casual Friday policy that Daniel had unofficially allowed was suddenly enforced strictly. Small things, but they indicated a shift in our department culture. Amanda was all about metrics and bottom-line results, which was not necessarily a bad thing, but the warm, collaborative atmosphere began to cool. Things will be different, Jessica whispered to me during Amanda's introduction meeting. I have a friend who worked with her in New York. She says Amanda is brilliant but ruthless. I brushed off the warning. After all, I had consistently exceeded my targets and received glowing performance reviews. I convinced myself that hard work and results would speak for themselves, regardless of management style. In retrospect, my naivety seems almost laughable. I had no idea that my professional life was about to be systematically dismantled by someone who had decided, long before getting to know me, that I did not fit into her vision for the department. The final weeks under Daniel's leadership had been filled with warmth and optimism. We had a farewell party for him at Lakeside Bar, where he gave an emotional speech about how proud he was of our team. "Keep supporting each other," he said, raising his glass. "That is what makes this department special." He had pulled me aside that evening, telling me he expected great things from me and that he would keep in touch. I believed him, and I believed in my future at Transglobal. I had no reason not to. My first one-on-one meeting with Amanda was scheduled for a Monday morning, exactly 1 week after she took over. I prepared a comprehensive overview of my current projects, client relationships, and recent successes. I wanted to make a good impression and show that I was a valuable asset to the team. I arrived 5 minutes early, knocking on the glass door of what had been Daniel's office. The decor had already changed dramatically. Gone were the family photos and motivational quotes Daniel had displayed. In their place were sleek, minimalist decorations and a large whiteboard covered with numbers and targets. "Come in," Amanda said without looking up from her computer. She was a tall woman with immaculately styled blonde hair, wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I sat down across from her desk, smiling and ready to present my portfolio. "So, Betty," she finally looked up, her expression unreadable. "Tell me about yourself." I began with my background and experience, then moved on to discuss the Sunrise Tech campaign and other successful projects. Throughout my presentation, Amanda's expression remained neutral. She nodded occasionally, but offered no feedback or encouragement. When I finished, I waited expectantly for her response. "That all sounds fine," she said dismissively, glancing at her watch. "But I am more interested in where we are going than where we have been. I will be restructuring some of our processes and client assignments in the coming weeks. For now, continue with your current workload. We will talk specifics later." The meeting ended abruptly, lasting less than 15 minutes. As I walked back to my desk, a sense of unease settled over me. It was not what she had said, but rather what she had not said. No acknowledgement of my achievements, no questions about my insights or ideas, no discussion about my role in her vision for the department. The following days brought more unsettling changes. New project assignments were announced in a department-wide email. Major clients I had been handling successfully for months were reassigned to other team members without explanation. Instead, I was given smaller accounts and routine tasks that did not utilize my expertise or experience. "Did you do something to upset Amanda?" Taylor asked during lunch one day, genuinely concerned. Everyone noticed the reassignments. "Not that I know of," I replied honestly. "I have barely spoken to her since our first meeting." Later that week, I accidentally received an email that was clearly not intended for me. Amanda had been scheduling individual strategy sessions with team members to discuss new directions for the department. My name was noticeably absent from the meeting list. When I inquired about this, her assistant coolly informed me that those meetings were only for team members directly involved in the strategic transition, whatever that meant. Determined to prove my value, I began working longer hours. I developed new marketing approaches for even the smallest clients I had been assigned, going above and beyond to show results. I created a detailed proposal for improving our social media strategy, hoping to demonstrate my initiative and strategic thinking. In our next department meeting, I gathered my courage and presented my social media proposal. I had researched industry trends, analyzed our competitors, and developed a comprehensive plan that would increase engagement while reducing costs. As I spoke, I noticed a few colleagues nodding appreciatively, but when I finished, Amanda's response was immediate and cutting. "While I appreciate the effort, Betty, that approach is outdated and not aligned with where we need to be going," she said dismissively. "Let us stick to the established agenda and assigned responsibilities for now." The room fell silent. I felt my face flush with embarrassment as I returned to my seat. After the meeting, Jessica approached me at the water cooler. That was brutal, she whispered, and completely unfair. Your proposal was solid. Thanks, I murmured, still stinging from the public rejection. Jessica looked around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned closer. Listen, you should know this is not new behavior for her. 2 people from her team in New York left within a month of her taking over there. They were both excellent performers who suddenly became not a good fit. One was Gary, who I know you met during the cross-office project last year. He told my friend it was like Amanda had decided to push him out from day one. That evening, I called Daniel. Despite his busy schedule settling into the London office, he took my call immediately. Betty, great to hear from you. How is everything going with the new boss? I hesitated, not wanting to sound like I was complaining, but ultimately decided to be honest. I shared my concerns about the client reassignments, the exclusion from strategic planning, and the dismissal of my ideas. Daniel listened thoughtfully. It sounds like Amanda has a different management style, which is not unusual during leadership transitions, he said diplomatically. Keep doing excellent work and give it some time. Sometimes new managers need to assert themselves initially before they can recognize the talent they have inherited. His words were reassuring, but I could hear a note of concern in his voice. If things do not improve, let me know, he added before we ended the call. I cannot intervene directly anymore, but I still have connections at headquarters who value my opinion. That night, I started a detailed log of all my work, interactions with Amanda, and any incidents that seemed unusual or unfair. Something told me I might need documentation later, though I still hoped things would improve. 3 weeks after Amanda took over, I received an email from her on Friday afternoon at 4:30. The subject line read Urgent, Burton Pharmaceuticals Proposal. Burton was a potential client that TransGlobal had been courting for months, a major pharmaceutical company that would significantly boost our portfolio. Betty, I need a comprehensive marketing proposal for Burton Pharmaceuticals by Monday morning, 8 a.m. sharp. Include competitive analysis, strategic recommendations, and detailed campaign concepts. This is a priority. No additional information was provided, no background files were attached. I immediately responded asking for existing research, budget parameters, and specific goals for the proposal. An hour passed with no reply. Most of the office had already left for the weekend when my phone finally pinged with a terse response. Use your initiative. All the basic information is in the company database. This is an opportunity to show your capabilities. I had planned a weekend getaway with Jack to celebrate his birthday. We had booked a cabin by Lake Geneva, just a 2-hour drive from Chicago. Now, I had to call and cancel. Again, Jack did not hide his disappointment. Betty, this is the 3rd weekend in a row. Something urgent has come up at work. I know, and I am so sorry, I said, feeling torn between my personal life and professional obligations. But this is huge. Burton Pharmaceuticals could be a game changer for us, and Amanda has specifically asked me to handle it. Maybe this means she is finally seeing my value. Jack sighed but supported my decision. Just do not let them take advantage of you, he warned. I spent the entire weekend researching pharmaceutical industry trends, analyzing Burton's current marketing strategies, and developing a comprehensive proposal. I barely slept, fueled by coffee and determination. By Sunday night, I had created what I believed was an exceptional proposal, innovative yet grounded in solid marketing principles. Monday morning, I arrived early and sent the completed proposal to Amanda. Her office door remained closed until midday. Finally, she emerged for the department meeting, but made no mention of the Burton proposal. After the meeting, I approached her directly. Did you have a chance to review the Burton proposal? I asked. She barely glanced at me. Yes, I looked it over. Frankly, it is not what I was looking for. The approach is too conventional, and you missed several key market considerations. I will have Sarah revise it. Sarah Bennett was a recent hire who had joined the team just a week after Amanda. She had been immediately included in all strategic meetings, and given significant responsibilities despite having less experience than most of the team. Could you give me specific feedback so I can improve it? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. I do not have time for a detailed critique right now, Amanda replied. Just focus on your assigned tasks for now. We will discuss your general performance at your quarterly review next week. Over the next 2 weeks, the pattern continued. Amanda would assign me urgent projects with tight deadlines, often requiring weekend work. Each time, regardless of the quality of my submission, she would find it lacking in some vague way and often reassign the work to Sarah or another team member. My colleagues began to distance themselves. Lunch invitations dwindled. Conversations would pause when I approached. Only Jessica maintained our friendship, though even she was careful about being seen with me too often. People are worried about being associated with someone who seems to be on Amanda's bad side, she explained apologetically during a quick coffee break outside the building. It is nothing personal. Everyone is just protecting their own positions. Through the office grapevine, I learned that Amanda was grooming Sarah for a senior role. They frequently had lunch together, and Sarah was being introduced to high-profile clients, including Burton Pharmaceuticals, which had apparently decided to work with Transglobal after all. My quarterly performance review arrived, and the results were devastating. Despite consistently exceeding metrics for years, Amanda gave me below-average scores in nearly every category, from creativity to teamwork. Your work has not met the standards I expect from someone at your level, she stated coldly. I am placing you on a performance improvement plan, effective immediately. The Performance Improvement Plan, PIP, set nearly impossible targets and required weekly check-ins with Amanda, which she frequently rescheduled or canceled at the last minute. It was a paper trail, I realized belatedly. She was building a case for my eventual termination. That night, I broke down in tears as I explained the situation to Jack. For the first time, he suggested what I had been avoiding thinking about. Betty, you need to start looking for another job, he said gently. It sounds like Amanda has decided you are not part of her plan, regardless of your performance. This is not about your capabilities or work ethic. But I love my job, I protested. I have built relationships with these clients. I have projects I care about. And if I leave now, with a PIP on my record and no positive reference, what kind of job will I be able to find? A job that values you, Jack insisted. This is becoming toxic, and I can see what it is doing to you. You are not sleeping. You are constantly anxious, and you have lost weight. No job is worth your health and happiness. Deep down, I knew he was right. The stress was affecting me physically. I had developed insomnia, my appetite had diminished, and I felt a constant knot of anxiety in my stomach. But something in me still wanted to fight, to prove that Amanda's assessment was wrong. I had invested too much in my career at Transglobal to walk away without a struggle. Give me a little more time, I asked Jack. I want to try to turn this around. He agreed reluctantly, but his concern was evident. That night, as he slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, wondering how my professional life had unraveled so quickly and what, if anything, I could do to repair it. Monday morning arrived with a bitter chill that seemed to mirror my internal state. I had decided over the weekend to come in early and prepare for my weekly PIP check-in with Amanda, determined to show progress despite the obstacles. The office was nearly empty when I arrived at 7:30, just a few early birds setting up for the day. I headed to the break room for coffee before settling at my desk. As I approached, I heard voices coming from the small conference room nearby. The door was slightly ajar, and I recognized Amanda's distinctive tone immediately. The other voice belonged to Thomas Anderson, our head of human resources, a normally friendly man who had been with the company for over a decade. I think we have sufficient documentation at this point, Amanda was saying. The performance improvement plan has not shown results, and I need that position for someone who aligns better with our direction. Just make sure all the procedural boxes are checked, Thomas replied. We want to avoid any potential issues later. Has she been given clear, documented feedback throughout the process? Absolutely. Amanda answered confidently. Everything is by the book. I froze, coffee in hand, as the reality of what I was hearing sank in. They were discussing my termination as if it were a foregone conclusion, despite the fact that my PIP period was not even halfway complete. I slipped away silently, my hands shaking as I returned to my desk. The evidence was now undeniable. Amanda had been systematically pushing me out from the moment she arrived. The day crawled by in a haze of anxiety. I performed my tasks mechanically, trying to process what I had overheard while maintaining a facade of normalcy. At 3:30, an email arrived from Thomas's assistant, requesting my presence in conference room B at 4 o'clock. Amanda would be there as well. With a sinking feeling, I backed up personal files from my computer to my private email and gathered a few meaningful items from my desk, just in case. Jessica noticed and shot me a questioning look. I just shook my head slightly, unable to explain in the open office. At 4 o'clock sharp, I knocked on the conference room door, my heart pounding so loudly I was certain they could hear it. Thomas greeted me with a professional smile that did not reach his eyes. Amanda sat beside him, a folder neatly placed before her on the polished table. "Betty, please have a seat," Thomas gestured to the chair across from them. "We wanted to discuss your progress and some concerns that have arisen." What followed was a carefully choreographed character assassination. Amanda detailed my supposed shortcomings, from lack of innovative thinking to failure to adapt to changing company culture. Each accusation felt like a physical blow, especially when contrasted with my actual performance and the recognition I had received before her arrival. Unfortunately, Thomas continued when Amanda had finished, "We do not feel that the performance improvement plan is yielding the necessary progress. Given that, we have two options to discuss today." He slid a document across the table. "This is a mutual separation agreement. It includes 4 weeks of severance pay in exchange for your voluntary resignation, effective immediately. The alternative would be to continue the PIP for another 2 weeks, with the understanding that significant improvement would be necessary to maintain your position." The message was clear. Take the offer and leave quietly, or be fired in 2 weeks with nothing. My mind raced as I stared at the document before me. Everything in me wanted to defend myself, to challenge their assessment with concrete examples of my contributions and successes, but I knew from their expressions that their decision was already made. "I would like some time to review this document before making a decision," I said, proud that my voice remained steady despite the turmoil inside me. Thomas nodded. "That is reasonable. We will need your decision by tomorrow afternoon." I left the meeting in a state of shock, collected my belongings, and headed home early. Jack found me sitting at our kitchen table, the untouched separation agreement before me, tears streaming down my face. "They want me gone," I whispered as he wrapped his arms around me. "After everything I have done for that company, they are pushing me out with some fabricated performance issues." Jack's reaction was one of pure outrage. "This is wrongful termination. They cannot get away with this. You need to speak to a lawyer before signing anything." "What would be the point?" I asked, feeling defeated. "It would be my word against theirs, and Amanda has been building a case against me for weeks. All the documentation supports their narrative." "Are you sure about that?" Jack challenged. "You have your performance reviews from Daniel, client testimonials, email records. There must be evidence that contradicts their claims." As we discussed options, my phone pinged with an email notification. Absently, I checked it, expecting nothing important. What I saw made me gasp. It was an email from Amanda, clearly sent to me by mistake. It was actually a forwarded message to Thomas, dated nearly 2 months earlier, just 1 week after she had started at Transglobal. The subject line read, "Department Restructuring Plans." In the email, Amanda outlined her vision for the marketing department, including specific personnel changes. My name appeared under a section labeled Phase Out, along with 2 other team members who had already left the company. The email explicitly stated her intention to replace me with someone from my New York team who better understands my approach. There was a note about Sarah being the ideal candidate once she could arrange her transfer. Most damning of all was this line. I will begin documenting performance issues to create the necessary paper trail. Please advise on minimum timeline requirements for termination without legal exposure. I handed my phone to Jack, watching his expression change from confusion to shock to anger as he read. "This is it," he said firmly. "This is proof that this whole thing was predetermined. She never intended to give you a fair chance." Further investigation of my email archive revealed more evidence. An email chain between Amanda and various executives had been accidentally included in a departmental distribution list. In it, Amanda had misrepresented my work on several projects and taken credit for ideas I had proposed. She had also made false statements about client feedback regarding my performance. Most surprisingly, I discovered an email from Sarah to Amanda from before either of them had joined our office, discussing the plan and how excited Sarah was about taking over the position once it is vacated. The shock of these discoveries was overwhelming, but it also ignited something in me. The unfairness of it all, the calculated nature of my professional demise, sparked a determination I had not felt in weeks. They had lied, manipulated, and schemed to push me out for reasons that had nothing to do with my actual performance. And now I had proof. "I am not signing that agreement," I said to Jack, a new resolve in my voice, "and I am not going quietly." The next morning, I called in sick, something I had rarely done in my 3 years at TransGlobal. I needed time to think, to plan, to determine my next steps carefully. Jack had already left for work, but not before helping me save and organize all the evidence I had discovered. "Document everything," he had advised, "and get professional help before you make any moves." By 9 a.m., I was sitting in the office of Rachel Goldstein, an attorney specializing in employment law. Her office was modest but professional, located in a converted warehouse in the West Loop. Awards and certifications lined the walls, lending credibility to her reputation as one of the best employment lawyers in Chicago. "So let me get this straight," Rachel said, after I had explained my situation and shown her the emails. "Your new director created a plan to terminate you before she had any opportunity to evaluate your actual performance, then systematically built a false record to justify that decision, and accidentally sent you proof of this scheme?" I nodded. "That is exactly what happened." Rachel leaned back in her chair, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Well, Betty, I do not want to get your hopes up prematurely, but what you have here appears to be evidence of wrongful termination and possibly discrimination. The question is, what do you want out of this situation?" It was a good question, one I had been pondering all night. "I want justice," I said simply. "I want them to acknowledge what they did was wrong. And honestly, I want to make sure Amanda cannot do this to someone else." "Those are worthy goals," Rachel replied. "But let us also discuss practical outcomes. Do you want your job back? Financial compensation? A clean record and positive references?" "I am not sure I want to go back to a company that would allow this to happen," I admitted. "But I do need to protect my professional reputation and financial stability." Rachel nodded understandingly. "Here is what I suggest. Do not sign their separation agreement. Instead, we will collect and organize all evidence of your actual performance and Amanda's predetermined plan. Before we take formal legal action, I will reach out to their legal department with what we have." Often, companies prefer to settle these matters quickly and quietly. "What should I do about their deadline for my decision?" I asked. "Go in tomorrow and request an extension, citing the need to consult with legal counsel. Record that conversation if possible. Illinois is a one-party consent state for recordings, so that would be perfectly legal. The more evidence we have of their behavior, the stronger our position." I left Rachel's office feeling more empowered than I had in weeks. There was a plan now, a way to fight back against the injustice. That afternoon, I spent hours compiling additional evidence. Performance reviews from Daniel, emails from satisfied clients, documentation of successful campaigns I had led, recognition I had received from company leadership before Amanda's arrival. The following day, I returned to the office, prepared to request an extension as Rachel had advised. I had downloaded a voice recording app to my phone and tested it thoroughly. As I walked to my desk, I noticed several colleagues watching me with curious expressions. Had news of my impending departure already spread? At 10 a.m., I received a message from Thomas asking me to come to his office with my decision regarding the separation agreement. With my phone recording in my pocket, I made my way to the HR department. Thomas greeted me with the same professional but distant demeanor as before. Amanda sat beside his desk, her expression neutral but her posture tense. "Have you had a chance to review the agreement?" Thomas asked once I was seated. "I have," I replied calmly. "And I will need an extension to make my decision. I am consulting with legal counsel to ensure I fully understand all aspects of this document." The change in their expressions was immediate and telling. Thomas's professional mask slipped slightly, revealing concern. Amanda's neutral expression hardened into something closer to hostility. "Legal counsel is unnecessary for a standard separation agreement," Thomas said carefully. "This is a generous offer that allows you to resign voluntarily rather than face potential termination for performance issues." Nevertheless, I maintained my composure. I am entitled to legal advice before signing any binding document. I will need until Monday to make my decision. The tension in the room was palpable. Amanda leaned forward slightly. "Betty, I think you are misinterpreting the situation. This is not a negotiation. The terms are final, and we need your decision today." "Actually," I countered, "there is nothing in company policy that requires immediate acceptance of a separation agreement. Standard practice allows for reasonable time to review such documents with counsel. I am simply requesting that standard courtesy." Thomas and Amanda exchanged glances. Finally, Thomas nodded reluctantly. "Very well. You have until Monday at 9 a.m., but be aware that the terms will not change." As I stood to leave, Amanda's voice stopped me. "Betty, I hope you understand that making this more difficult than it needs to be will not benefit anyone, least of all you. Your reputation in this industry could be affected by how you handle this transition." The thinly veiled threat was exactly what Rachel had warned me might happen. I simply nodded and left the room, the recording safely captured on my phone. When I returned to my desk, an email was waiting for me. It was from Thomas, confirming our meeting on Monday and reiterating the terms of the separation agreement. What caught my eye, however, was a separate email notification that appeared moments later. A calendar invite for a department update meeting scheduled for Friday afternoon. All marketing staff were required to attend, but my name was conspicuously absent from the invitation list. I forwarded both emails to Rachel, along with the recording of our meeting. Her response was swift. "This is developing exactly as expected. They are planning to announce your departure before you have even made your decision. Continue documenting everything and avoid signing anything until we meet again." The next morning, Friday, I arrived at work to find my system access restricted. I could log in, but many of my usual permissions were revoked. I could not access certain files or systems necessary for my work. When I called IT support, they informed me that the restrictions had been authorized by Human Resources. A clear message was being sent. I was already being phased out, regardless of my decision on the separation agreement. At 3 p.m., I watched as my colleagues filed into the conference room for the department meeting from which I had been excluded. Jessica caught my eye as she passed, a question in her expression. I simply shrugged, indicating I had no idea what was happening. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "They just announced your departure. Thomas said you chose to leave for personal reasons. What is going on?" Before I could respond, Thomas appeared at my desk, Amanda a step behind him. "Betty, we need to speak with you in private," Thomas said quietly. Conscious of nearby colleagues who had returned from the meeting and were watching with undisguised curiosity, in a small meeting room, Thomas informed me that they had accelerated the timeline in light of my reluctance to accept the separation agreement. "Your employment is terminated effective immediately," he stated. We will provide the severance outlined in the agreement as a courtesy, but we need you to clear out your desk and return your company property today." "On what grounds am I being terminated?" I asked, careful to maintain a calm demeanor despite my racing heart. "Continued performance issues and failure to meet the objectives outlined in your improvement plan," Amanda replied smoothly. "As we discussed previously." "I see," I said, making no move to leave. "And was this decision made before or after I mentioned consulting legal counsel about your separation agreement?" Neither answered directly. Thomas simply reiterated that I needed to collect my belongings and leave the premises within the hour. They would have security escort me if necessary, though he hoped that would not be required. "One last question," I said as I stood to leave. "Will you be informing the department of the real reason for my termination, or maintaining the fiction that this was my personal choice?" Amanda's eyes narrowed. "We have announced that you are leaving for personal reasons, which is the professional way to handle these situations. I suggest you maintain the same story in your own communications. It will be better for everyone involved." I nodded, not in agreement but in acknowledgement of their position. As I walked back to my desk, I could feel dozens of eyes tracking my movement. Thomas followed a few steps behind, clearly designated to ensure my orderly departure. When we reached the main office area, Thomas cleared his throat and addressed the curious onlookers. "As you know, Betty has decided to leave TransGlobal for personal reasons. Today is her last day. Please give her space to collect her things." I sat quietly at my desk, methodically packing my personal items while everyone pretended not to watch. My phone burned in my pocket, containing the evidence that would contradict everything Thomas had just said. The termination email from Amanda to Thomas, accidentally forwarded to me, clearly stated their plan to remove me regardless of performance. It was dated long before any supposed performance issues had been documented. What they did not know was that I had already forwarded that email, along with all my other evidence, to Rachel. And what they definitely did not know was that their actions today, terminating me immediately after I mentioned legal counsel, had just strengthened our case considerably. As I packed the last of my photos and personal items into a cardboard box, I maintained a calm exterior. Inside, however, a determination was building. This was not the end of my story with TransGlobal Marketing. It was just the beginning of a different chapter, one where the truth would finally come to light. The weekend after my termination was a whirlwind of emotions and activity. Jack was outraged but supportive, helping me organize my evidence and prepare for a Monday morning meeting with Rachel. Friends called after hearing rumors about my sudden departure, and I stuck to vague explanations while I determined my next steps. Monday morning, I arrived at Rachel's office with a complete portfolio of evidence: emails, performance reviews, client testimonials, voice recordings, and detailed timelines of events since Amanda's arrival. "This is impressive documentation," Rachel remarked as she reviewed the materials. "Most clients do not come this prepared." "I tend to be thorough," I replied with a small smile, the first one that felt genuine in weeks. After reviewing everything, Rachel leaned back in her chair with a confident expression. "Betty, you have a strong case for wrongful termination. The email showing Amanda's predetermined plan to remove you, combined with your stellar performance history and the timing of your termination immediately after requesting legal counsel, creates a compelling narrative of improper conduct by TransGlobal." "So what happens now?" I asked. "First, we draft a formal letter to TransGlobal's legal department outlining your claims and evidence, but not revealing everything we have. We will request a meeting to discuss potential resolution before filing any formal legal action. Companies often prefer to settle these matters quickly and privately to avoid publicity and potential damage to their reputation." While Rachel prepared the letter, I reached out to Daniel. Despite the time difference with London, he called me immediately after receiving my message. "Betty, I am so sorry," he said after I explained what had happened. "I had no idea things would escalate like this. If I had known Amanda was planning this from the beginning, I would have intervened sooner. It is not your fault, I assured him. But I could use your help now. Would you be willing to provide a statement about my performance history if needed? Absolutely, he agreed without hesitation. In fact, I am flying to Chicago next week for the quarterly leadership meeting. I can speak to some people directly while I am there. That same day, Jessica called during her lunch break. The office is bizarre without you, she reported. And get this, Sarah is already struggling with your clients. Reynolds Retail is threatening to take their business elsewhere because she missed key elements in their campaign proposal. I am not surprised, I replied. Those accounts took time to build relationships and understand their specific needs. A few of us are meeting for drinks after work if you want to join, Jessica offered. Taylor and Amelia miss you too. The gathering that evening at our usual spot, Lakeside Bar, turned into an unexpected strategy session. Taylor revealed that 2 other team members who had previously worked under Amanda in New York had reached out after hearing about my situation. They had almost identical experiences, Taylor explained. Amanda brought in new people, marginalized existing team members, created false performance issues, then pushed them out. One of them, Eliza, has documentation similar to yours. She never pursued action because she found a better job quickly, but she said she would be willing to share her story if it helps. The next day, I received a call from a number I did not recognize. It was Robert Wilson, another former TransGlobal employee who had worked under Amanda in New York. Jessica gave me your number, he explained. I heard what happened and wanted to reach out. The same thing happened to me last year. Robert described a pattern of behavior identical to what I had experienced, right down to the personal reasons explanation given to colleagues after his departure. He had also kept records and offered to provide a statement if needed. 2 days later, Rachel received a response to our letter. TransGlobal's legal department requested a meeting to discuss the situation and potential resolution. They proposed a date the following week. This is a good sign, Rachel assured me. They want to talk before this goes any further. That suggests they recognize the strength of our position. During the intervening days, I focused on moving forward professionally. I updated my resume, reached out to industry contacts, and began applying for positions. To my surprise, I received several interview requests almost immediately. My reputation in the industry was stronger than Amanda's influence. One particularly interesting opportunity came from Meridian Creative, a direct competitor to TransGlobal. They had heard through the grapevine about my departure and were interested in my experience with the Sunrise Tech campaign, which had been widely recognized in the industry. The day before our scheduled meeting with TransGlobal, I received an unexpected call from Daniel. I spoke with James Thornton, he said, referring to TransGlobal's CEO. I showed him copies of your previous performance reviews and the client testimonials you shared with me. He was concerned about the discrepancy between those and the narrative he had been given by Amanda and HR. What was his reaction? I asked. He has requested to be present at tomorrow's meeting, Daniel replied. And he has asked for a complete review of all documentation related to your termination. I think you might be surprised by the outcome. The meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. at TransGlobal's offices. Rachel advised against the location initially, but I insisted. I want to walk in there with my head held high. I did nothing wrong. We arrived 15 minutes early, professionally dressed and thoroughly prepared. To my surprise, the conference room contained not just TransGlobal's legal counsel as expected, but also CEO James Thornton, head of HR Thomas Anderson, and notably, no sign of Amanda. James stood and extended his hand as we entered. Miss Williams, thank you for coming. We appreciate the opportunity to discuss this situation directly. The meeting began with Rachel presenting an overview of my claims and key pieces of evidence, including Amanda's incriminating email outlining her plan to remove me before any performance issues had been documented. Thomas looked increasingly uncomfortable as the presentation continued. The company's legal counsel, a sharp-looking woman named Patricia Alvarez, took copious notes but revealed little in her expression. When Rachel finished, James spoke directly to me. Miss Williams, I want to personally apologize for what appears to be a serious lapse in our management and HR processes. The documentation you have provided contradicts the narrative we were given regarding your performance and the circumstances of your termination. He continued. After speaking with Daniel and reviewing your previous performance history, I have serious concerns about how this situation was handled. I have already initiated an internal investigation into the matter. Patricia then outlined a proposed resolution. Full severance for 6 months rather than the original 4 weeks. Complete removal of any negative documentation from my personnel file, positive references for future employment, and a letter acknowledging that my departure was not related to performance issues. Additionally, James added, I would like to discuss the possibility of reinstating your position, reporting to a different director, if that would interest you. The offer was more generous than I had expected, but I had already made my decision. The previous day, I had received a formal offer from Meridian Creative for a senior marketing director position, with a substantial increase in salary and responsibility. I appreciate the offer of reinstatement, I replied carefully, but I believe it would be best for all parties if I pursue opportunities elsewhere. However, I would like to ensure that others do not experience similar treatment in the future. James nodded solemnly. We are already taking steps to address that concern. Amanda has been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of our investigation, which will include interviews with current and former team members. After further negotiation on specific terms, we reached an agreement that satisfied both sides. As we prepared to leave, James asked to speak with me privately for a moment. Rachel gave me a questioning look, but I nodded my assent. Once we were alone, James spoke candidly. Off the record, Betty, I want you to know that Daniel has always spoken very highly of you. The discrepancy between his assessment and Amanda's raised red flags that I should have noticed sooner. I apologize for failing to provide the oversight that might have prevented this situation. Thank you for saying that, I replied. It means a lot to hear. May I ask where you are headed next? He inquired. I have accepted a position with Meridian Creative, I told him. A small smile crossed his face. They are getting an exceptional talent. I wish you the very best. 2 weeks later, I received an email from Jessica with the subject line, You would not believe what happened today. Amanda had been terminated following the internal investigation. Apparently, Robert and Eliza's testimonies, along with evidence from current employees, had revealed a pattern of discriminatory behavior and manipulation that extended beyond my case. Sarah had been removed from her position, handling my former clients, and reassigned to more appropriate responsibilities based on her actual experience level. Most surprisingly, Jessica had been promoted to fill the leadership gap temporarily while the company searched for a new director. The office feels completely different, Jessica wrote. It is like everyone can breathe again. 3 months into my new position at Meridian, I received my first major success. We won the Burton Pharmaceuticals account, ironically the same client Amanda had used to set me up for failure at TransGlobal. My comprehensive understanding of their needs, developed during that frantic weekend work, had given me insights that made our proposal uniquely compelling. Congratulations on the Burton account, my new boss, Catherine, said during our weekly check-in. Their feedback on your presentation was exceptional. They specifically mentioned your understanding of their market challenges and creative approach to addressing them. Thank you, I replied with genuine pride. It feels good to have my work recognized on its merits. That is how it should always be, Catherine said simply. 6 months after my departure from TransGlobal, I ran into Thomas at an industry conference. He approached me cautiously during the networking reception. Betty, he acknowledged with a nod. You look well. I hear you are doing great things at Meridian. I am, I confirmed. How are things at TransGlobal? Different, he admitted. James implemented new management oversight protocols and HR procedures after your case. I actually wanted to thank you. Your stand led to important changes that were long overdue. I nodded, accepting his words without offering absolution. The experience had taught me about the importance of accountability, especially for those in positions of power. By the time my 1-year anniversary at Meridian arrived, I had been promoted to head of client strategy, leading a team of 8 talented marketers. Jack and I had purchased our first home, a charming 3-bedroom in Evanston with a small yard for the puppy we had recently adopted. The trauma of my transglobal experience had faded, replaced by new challenges and achievements that better reflected my capabilities and work ethic. When people asked about my career journey, I no longer skipped over the transglobal chapter or minimized the injustice I had faced. Instead, I shared it as an important part of my professional development, a time when I learned to stand up for myself and discovered the strength to fight for what was right, not just for me but for others who might face similar situations. 1 year had passed since that fateful day when I sat quietly at my desk, packing my belongings, while Thomas announced to the entire floor that I had chosen to leave for personal reasons. The memory still brought a twinge of anger, but it no longer had the power to shake me as it once did. My new office at Meridian Creative overlooked the Chicago River, a constant reminder of how life continues to flow forward regardless of obstacles. The view was particularly beautiful this morning, the water catching the golden light of sunrise as I prepared for an important presentation. My team would be arriving soon for our final review before meeting with a potential new client, a multinational corporation looking to refresh their brand identity. It would be our largest account if we secured it, a testament to how far we had come in just 1 year. I opened my laptop and reviewed the presentation one last time, feeling confident in our approach. Under my leadership, our department had developed a reputation for innovative strategies backed by solid research. We had grown from a team of 3 to 8 in the past 6 months, each person selected not just for their skills but for their collaborative spirit and integrity. My phone buzzed with a text from Jack. "Good luck today." "Not that you need it." "Dinner reservation at 7 to celebrate?" I smiled and replied with a quick affirmative. His unwavering support had been my foundation through the darkest days and continued to be my strength during the brightest ones. A knock at my door announced the arrival of Alicia, my deputy and the first person I had hired at Meridian. "Team is assembled in the conference room," she reported, "and I just got word that the client CEO will be joining the presentation. Apparently, he has heard good things and wants to see for himself." "Perfect," I replied, gathering my materials. "Let us show them what we can do." As we walked to the conference room, I reflected on how different this work environment was from Transglobal. Here, ideas were valued regardless of who proposed them. Collaboration was genuine, not performative. Success was celebrated collectively rather than used as a weapon of comparison. The presentation went flawlessly. Our team members supported each other seamlessly, each showcasing their expertise while maintaining a cohesive vision. When the client CEO asked particularly challenging questions, I deferred to team members who had the most relevant knowledge rather than trying to control the narrative. Their insightful responses demonstrated exactly the kind of thoughtful, research-based approach we promised to bring to their brand. Afterward, as we celebrated the positive feedback in our office, I received an unexpected email from Jessica. We had kept in touch, meeting occasionally for lunch or drinks, but her messages had become less frequent as she grew busier in her new role at Transglobal. "Thought you would want to know," her email began. "Amanda is struggling to find a new position. Apparently, word has spread about what happened at Transglobal. 3 of her former New York victims came forward after your case was settled, and it created a pattern that could not be ignored or explained away. Karma works in mysterious ways." I closed the email without responding immediately, unsure how to feel. There was a time when news of Amanda's professional difficulties would have brought a sense of vindication. Now, it simply felt like the natural consequence of her actions, neither pleasing nor distressing. That evening over dinner with Jack, I shared Jessica's update. "Does it make you happy?" he asked, studying my expression carefully. I considered the question before answering. "Not really. I do not wish her ill, but I also do not think she should be in a position to hurt others. Mostly, I am glad that the truth eventually came to light." Jack nodded. "You know what impresses me most about how you handled everything?" You never made it just about you. You stood up not only for yourself, but for a principle, for others who might face the same treatment. That is courage. His words touched something deep within me. Through all the turmoil, I had indeed tried to focus on the larger picture, on ensuring that what happened to me would not happen to others, at least not without consequence. The following weekend, I agreed to speak at a professional development workshop for marketing students at my alma mater, Northwestern University. The topic was navigating ethical challenges in corporate environments, something I now had unique perspective on. Looking out at the eager faces of students preparing to enter the workforce, I felt a responsibility to share not just my success story, but the challenging journey that had led to it. Your technical skills matter, I told them toward the end of my talk. Your creativity, your strategic thinking, your ability to understand market dynamics, all of these are crucial. But equally important is your commitment to integrity, both your own and what you expect from others. Sometimes standing up for what is right comes with a cost, but remaining silent carries a greater one, the erosion of your own sense of worth and agency. After the workshop, several students approached with questions and comments. One young woman waited until the others had left before speaking. I am in a situation right now, at my internship, she confided. My supervisor takes credit for my work and belittles my contributions in meetings. I have been afraid to speak up because I need a good reference. After hearing your story, I am going to document everything and request a meeting with the department head. Even if it does not change my current situation, at least I will know I tried. Her words stayed with me long after our conversation ended. By sharing my experience, I had potentially helped someone else avoid the months of self-doubt and anxiety I had endured. It was a different kind of professional accomplishment, but one that felt uniquely meaningful. The months continued to unfold with new challenges and opportunities. Jack and I settled into our home in Evanston, adopting a second dog to keep our first one company. We discussed marriage and children, no longer feeling that our future was uncertain or precarious. Professionally, I continued to thrive at Meridian. My team expanded again, and I was invited to join the Executive Leadership Committee, helping shape the company's long-term strategy and culture. The client we had pitched that day became our largest account, leading to additional referrals and industry recognition. Occasionally, I would run into former transglobal colleagues at industry events. Most were cordial, some apologetic for not having been more supportive during my ordeal. I accepted their greetings with grace, recognizing that fear for their own positions had influenced their behavior. One evening, nearly 18 months after my termination, I received an unexpected call from Daniel, who had returned to Chicago to head TransGlobal's North American operations following a major reorganization. I would like to meet for coffee, if you are willing, he said. There have been significant changes at TransGlobal that I think you would find interesting. We met at a small cafe halfway between our offices. Daniel looked well, the London experience having added a certain cosmopolitan polish to his already confident demeanor. First, I want to apologize again for not being more proactive when you first reached out about Amanda, he began. I should have recognized the warning signs and done more. You did help when it really mattered, I reminded him. Your conversation with James was instrumental in how things ultimately resolved. Daniel nodded. TransGlobal has implemented completely new management evaluation protocols and whistleblower protections. Your case was a wake-up call about how easily toxic management can flourish when oversight is lacking. James actually uses it as a case study in leadership training now, of course with names changed, and your permission if you are ever willing to grant it. The idea that my painful experience might help prevent similar situations for others was deeply satisfying. It transformed what had felt like a personal defeat into a catalyst for positive change. As I walked back to my office after meeting with Daniel, I reflected on the journey of the past 2 years. The wrongful termination had been painful, but it had also revealed my own strength and resilience. It had clarified my values and shown me the importance of standing up for myself and others. Most importantly, it had led me to a place where my contributions were valued and my integrity was not a liability, but an asset. The experience had taught me that while we cannot always control how others treat us, we can control how we respond, whether we allow injustice to silence us or use it to find our voice. It had shown me that sometimes the most difficult chapters of our story become the most defining, not because of what was done to us, but because of how we chose to act in the face of wrongdoing. I no longer define myself in relation to that experience. It was simply one chapter in a continuing story, important but not all-encompassing. The personal decision that truly mattered was not the fictitious one Thomas had announced to my colleagues that day, but the one I made in the aftermath, to seek justice, to rebuild, and ultimately to thrive. Have you ever faced injustice in your workplace? What actions did you take to stand up for yourself? I would love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If you found my story helpful, please like and subscribe to see more content about navigating professional challenges. Share this video with someone who might be facing a similar situation, because sometimes knowing you are not alone makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember that your worth is not determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to respond.